How do you stay feminine in your marriage? How do you maintain that healthy balance of masculinity and femininity between you and your husband so that your marriage lasts and your husband continues to see you as this beautiful feminine creature that he originally married? Welcome to The Shift with Gina. Today we are going to talk about the number one tip for maintaining femininity in your marriage so that your husband always sees your femininity and appreciates it. And, well, you avoid these nasty arguments and maybe even avoid divorce, because maintaining that relationship between masculinity and femininity is so important in a marriage. Femininity is a word that is thrown around a lot today. And it's so much more than wearing pretty dresses and pampering yourself and getting your nails done and letting the man lead. Sure, those are all parts of your femininity, but it is something in our core as women. There's something about femininity that makes men inexplicably attracted to us, that makes children naturally drawn to us. It's something that is supposed to come very naturally to women, and it is in many ways one of our sacred duties to maintain this nurturing energy, and it's what sets us apart so clearly from men. And with the high rates of divorce today and women trying to be men and trying to be more manly thanks to feminism, especially with the rise of the girl boss, we need to talk about how to stay more feminine in marriage, because as the spark starts to sort of die out and you become much more comfortable with your spouse and you have kids and you've gone through so many challenges together, it's easy to let some things fall to the wayside, which will unfortunately sometimes end up in the love falling to the wayside a little bit. So how do you stay feminine in marriage to keep the spark alive, keep the sexiness there, keep the connection there, and keep the love brewing at all times? So here's the number one tip. Know the difference between mothering and nurturing. These are two different things that have different outcomes, that have a different feel to them. And unfortunately, with so many marriages today, especially when you have kids, it's really easy for women to get these two mixed up. They get crossed and they get kind of mumble jumbled. And then the woman starts to mother the husband like she has to mother the children rather than nurturing the husband. Okay, so first, let's define what nurturing is. Nurturing is the core of femininity and motherhood. It is caring for other human beings, caring for living beings in a way that's going to help them thrive. It's going to help them grow. It's that softness of femininity that is so necessary. And it's necessary not only in loving our husbands, but of course in loving our children, right? And so even just that first skin to skin contact that we get with our babies when they're born, and the touch, the special touch and the intimacy that we have with our husband, a lot of this comes from the nurturing. Like, you want to take care of your husband. You want to make sure that he's fed well. You want to make sure that he has everything that he needs and he has less stress in his life. You want to make sure that he's laughing and he's lighthearted, and you want to help him in whatever challenges he's facing in his life. And with your children, you want to make sure that they're loved and they feel cared for. And if they get hurt, if they get a boo-boo, you want to be there for them. You want to put them to sleep. The women are really the ones who tend to have more patience with children because we tend to be more nurturing. Again, it is at the core of femininity. Mothering, on the other hand, it actually tends to be a little bit more of a hard energy. In some ways, mothering can be a little bit masculine, because when you're mothering young children, you have a specific direction that you're going. You know what the destination is. You know where you want to be. You know that you want your children to be respectful, kind, well-adjusted kids, and you will use a little bit of force and discipline sometimes to get your children there. You have a destination. You want your kids to eat this protein, eat these vegetables, drink water. You want your kids to watch less TV. You want your kids to read well. You want your kids to interact well. These are all like final destination things that you have to mother your kids into. And that can sometimes be a bit of a masculine energy. And in a marriage, when you're trying to mother your husband, that is a major love buster. Because what's the most common manifestation of mothering a husband? It's called nagging. You just nag him. You be like, can you get this done, please? When are you going to get this done? When are you going to fix a toilet? I've been asking you to fix a toilet for like 2 weeks now. All you got to do is take the tools. When are you going to get this done? It's like trying to force them to do something because you have a specific outcome. It's that same like mothering energy that you have to give to kids sometimes. So when it comes to raising kids, you need both mothering and nurturing. But when it comes to loving your husband, you need very little mothering, because the mothering is that major love buster that sort of kills that natural soft femininity that your husband fell in love with. And this is a mistake that I've definitely made, especially very early on in my marriage. And, you know, when my first child was very, very young, when the kids are young and you're a brand new mom and you're trying to figure all this out, it's really easy to just mother everything and everyone because you have an outcome in your mind that you want to get to, and it doesn't matter how you get there. But, you know, the term love buster can sometimes be used in therapy settings or couples counseling sessions. And, you know, I'm not necessarily a huge fan of talk therapy, but I think the term love buster is really useful because it accurately describes a lot of unrest between husbands and wives, because husbands may not be able to articulate this to you. They may not be able to really even say it to themselves, but they do not want to be mothered. They don't want to sleep with mothering energy. They don't find it sexy. They don't find it attractive. They don't find it mysterious. They don't find it nice. They don't want to be mothered. Your kids need to be mothered. And with the kids, even if they can't articulate it to themselves, they like discipline. They like to know what their boundaries are. It makes them feel safe because they're not yet adults, because they look to you as their mother and to their father for all of these rules and boundaries. That's why mothering is necessary with kids. But with your husband, he does not need you to give him the mothering rules and boundaries and that almost like masculine leading energy. Because when you're mothering your kids, you are leading in a lot of ways. You're not leading your husband. So here's an example, right? Your husband comes home from a long day of work and he requests fried chicken for dinner. He's like, I really want some fried chicken, honey. Now, the mothering part would turn him and be like, I told you need to eat healthier. You can't have that deep fried stuff all the time. Don't you want to live long and be there for us and your kids? Don't you want to eat healthier? Don't you want to feel better when you wake up in the morning? Do you want to lower your blood pressure? Don't you want to lose some weight? So you end up like mothering him and scolding him and saying that he shouldn't have this food. And then he's just like, oh gosh, he comes home from a long day of work. That's the last thing he wants to hear. Nurturing him would be finding a healthier version of fried chicken to cook for him. Lightly breaded, seasoned well, maybe fried in beef tallow. On the side, some veggies to give him some nourishment. You know, make sure he's drinking plenty of water. Okay, honey, let me make that for you. I'm going to make you something a little bit special. And you nurture him by giving him, maybe he wants some fried chicken, okay, but you have a healthier version of that, right? So that's an example of the difference between mothering and nurturing. And it can be very, very difficult because we want the best for our husbands. And it's true that a lot of times men can be slow on the uptake, and sometimes they're not really great at hearing things and fixing little things in their lives that we wish they would fix. And the longer you're married to somebody, the more you find things that should be fixed, and the more you find things that you can be annoyed at, which means that the more you find reasons to nag and to mother. But we must find more ways to nurture our husbands. And this becomes harder and harder after you have kids because you are spending so much time mothering your children. But if you can ask yourself before you respond or before you lash out at your husband, is this mothering energy or is this nurturing energy? Sometimes it's better to take a step back if your husband's doing something frustrating or there's whatever, a disagreement, whatever it might be. Instead of mothering him and telling him what he did wrong, what he needs to do to change, sometimes it's better to just take a step back, take a breather. Maybe if you can, take 5 to 10 minutes to yourself and then ask yourself, how can I be nurturing in this situation here? Because men are probably not able to articulate this, but the more that you return to this more nurturing feminine energy, the more that they're going to still love you and be attracted to you, because it is important to maintain that level of attraction in your marriage. Of course it is. You want that attraction and of course the sexual attraction in your marriage, and you're not going to get that if you're constantly mothering and nagging all the time. Of course, there are a lot of other ways that you can maintain femininity in marriage, of course, but I think this is the number one most relevant piece of advice for wives today. because it is just so easy to fall into that mothering energy once we become moms, because you're so used to being a mom all day long. The kids are leaving stuff around the house. You have to tell them, do this, do that. Sometimes you have to threaten them or discipline them. You can't turn that same energy on your husband. And this is why it's really important as a mom and as a wife that your cup is full yourself, because it takes energy and it takes work to transition from mothering to nurturing, to transition from mothering while your husband's at work, and then when your husband comes home, transition to nurturing. Your cup has to be full. You have to be healthy. You have to be vibrant. You have to realize that you are the only person responsible for your own feelings. You're responsible for your own fulfillment and your own happiness. You can't expect your husband to do all of that for you. Of course, he should treat you right. Yes, of course. But that's why it's so important to keep your cup full as a wife and a mother, because you cannot have a feminine energy in your marriage if your cup is empty and you're drained and you're exhausted and you're just mad and bitter. You can't. So if you want to maintain the difference between nurturing and mothering, take care of yourself. Make sure you are well fed. Make sure you are hydrated. Make sure your hormones are balanced. Make sure that if you have young children, it's just temporary, but make sure that you are sleeping well. And make sure that you have daily practices that help you maintain your calm, maintain your peace, so that you can distinguish between nurturing and mothering, because it could really be the thing that saves your marriage. Now, of course, there are plenty of things that your husband can do to stay masculine. I'm not saying that the husband should never do anything. Unfortunately, sometimes when you talk about just one gender, the other one's like, well, why don't you talk about men? Why don't you talk about women? We're talking about women here in this video, okay? So there are plenty of things that men can do to stay masculine, but first we can take responsibility for ourselves. And this is the number one tip for staying feminine in marriage. Don't mother your husband's lady. Nurture him. Save the mothering for your children and learn how to nurture your husband and be more feminine. And he will always love you. I mean, he's going to always love you anyway, but you get what I'm saying. You want to just minimize as much as you can that disconnect that comes from nagging your husband all the time. So for those of you who've been married, especially those of you who've been married for a long time, please drop some tips and advice in the comment section. I'd love to hear from you. What helps women stay feminine in marriage? What has really worked for you? And I'm sure there are plenty of younger women or younger wives who would love to hear the advice. And if there's any other topic you want me to talk about in the next couple of videos, let me know. All right, see you guys next time. Bye.